Jake Morrison walked into the biggest room he had ever seen. The walls stretched up so high that clouds could have formed near the ceiling. Thousands of alien beings sat in rows that went on forever. Some looked like walking crystals. Others had too many arms or eyes in strange places. A few glowed with their own light. All of them were staring at him. Jake wore his best suit, the dark blue one his wife had picked out for him before he left Earth. His hands shook a little as he carried the folder with all the papers inside. 50 years of human work with the Galactic Council. 50 years of helping other worlds solve their problems. 50 years of humans dying to save aliens they had never met. Now it was ending. The crystal being at the front of the room stood up. His name was Zethkar, and he spoke for the Valoran Empire. When he moved, light bounced off his body like sunlight on broken glass. His voice was cold and sharp. Humans are too violent, Zethkar said. They fight too much. They take too many risks. They make other species uncomfortable with their ways. Jake wanted to laugh, but he kept his mouth shut. Uncomfortable. That was the word they used now. Not grateful. Not thankful that humans had saved their worlds time and time again. Uncomfortable. Another alien stood up. This one looked like a giant flower with eyes on the petals. Her name was Bloomtel, and she spoke for the Luminian Peace Collective. When she talked, her voice sounded like wind through leaves. The human way of solving problems always involves fighting, she said. They think war is the answer to everything. This goes against our beliefs. Peace must come first. More aliens stood up to speak. The bug-like Nexari complained that humans were too emotional. The gas cloud ethereals said humans moved too fast and did not think enough. The rock people called Corvin said humans were too loud and too proud. Jake listened to all of it. Every word was like a small knife cutting into his chest. These were the same species that had begged for human help when pirates attacked their trade routes. The same ones who had cried for human soldiers when the Drakmiri horde tried to eat their children. The same ones who had asked human doctors to save them from plagues that their own medicine could not cure. But humans had done their job too well. They had made the galaxy so safe that everyone forgot why they needed protection in the first place. The trial went on for hours. Species after species told the council why humans should be kicked out. They used big words like militaristic and aggressive intervention policies. But what they really meant was simple. Humans scared them because humans were willing to fight and die for what was right. Jake thought about his brother Tony, who had died stopping a Zelkari slave ship from escaping with a cargo hold full of children. Tony had rammed his fighter into the bigger ship's engines, saving 200 kids he had never met. The Zelkari government had given Tony a medal after he was dead. Now the same government was voting to kick humans out of the council. He thought about Dr. Maria Santos, who had worked for 30 years straight to cure the Red Death that was killing the Altarian people. She had never taken a day off until she found the cure. She had died at her desk, still working. The Altarians had built a statue of her. Now they were voting to kick humans out too. When it was time to vote, Jake watched the big board light up with numbers. Green meant, keep the humans. Red meant, kick them out. Blue meant, we do not care either way. The red numbers climbed higher and higher. 800 votes to kick humans out. Then 820, 840. The green numbers stayed small. 12 votes to keep humans in the council. Jake was not surprised. He had seen this coming for years. Ever since the last big war ended, the other species had been getting nervous about having humans around. Humans reminded them that the universe was dangerous. Humans made them think about things they wanted to forget. When the voting finished, the final count appeared on the big screen. 847 votes to kick humans out. 12 votes to keep them. 23 species that did not care either way. Zeth, Carr, stood up again. His crystal body flashed with what might have been happiness. The vote is final, he said. All humans must leave council space within 72 standard hours. All human property must be removed. All human treaties are now void. Jake stood up slowly. The folder in his hands felt heavier now, full of papers that no longer mattered. 50 years of friendship. 50 years of partnership. 50 years of humans bleeding and dying for aliens who were now too scared to share the same space with them. The room was completely quiet. Thousands of alien eyes watched him, waiting to see what he would do. Would he yell? Would he threaten them? Would he beg them to change their minds? Jake looked around the room one last time. He saw the Luminians who had asked humans to fight the Shadow Fleet that tried to block out their sun. He saw the Corvin who had needed human engineers to fix their broken planet. He saw the Nexari who had wanted human hackers to stop the AI, uprising on their computer worlds. All of them were staring at him now, waiting for the famous human anger to explode, waiting for threats and shouting and promises of revenge. Instead, Jake nodded once. "We understand," he said. His voice was calm and quiet. "Humanity will do what the Council asks. We will leave." That was all. No big speech. No angry words. No threats about what would happen when the next crisis came. Just a simple promise to go away. The aliens looked confused. This was not how humans usually acted. Humans were supposed to fight back. They were supposed to argue and demand and refuse to give up. But Jake just turned around and walked toward the exit. His footsteps echoed in the huge room as thousands of aliens watched him go. Behind him, worried whispers started to spread. Something was wrong with this picture, but they could not figure out what. Jake reached the door and stopped for just a moment. He looked back at the Council one last time. "You will miss us," he said quietly. Then he walked out. Within an hour, every human in Council space got the same message on their communicators. It was short and simple. "Pack light. Come home. We are done here." The age of human protection was over. The age of consequences was about to begin. Lisa Bennett stood on the bridge of her ship and watched the workers take apart Kepler Station piece by piece. The station had been humanity's biggest trading post in the neutral zone. Now it looked like a skeleton as humans removed everything useful from its metal bones. "Captain, the Zelkari are asking questions again," said Amy Foster from the communications desk. Amy was young, maybe 25, with short red hair and bright green eyes. She had been asking the same question all day. "What do they want to know this time?" Lisa asked. She was tired. They had been working for 18 hours straight, and there were still 12 more hours of work ahead. "They want to know why we are taking all the medical equipment," Amy said. "They say they need it for their hospitals." Lisa looked out the window at the huge machines being loaded onto human cargo ships. Those machines could cure cancers that killed millions of aliens every year. They could fix broken bones in minutes instead of months. They could even grow new organs for people who needed them. "Tell them the equipment belongs to us," Lisa said. "We built it. We paid for it. We are taking it home." This was happening all over Council space. Humans were not just leaving. They were taking everything with them. Every computer. Every machine. Every piece of technology that made life better. For the aliens who had just kicked them out. On the farming world of New Eden, Ryan Carter supervised the removal of the great weather machines. These machines had turned a dead rock into a paradise that could feed billions of people. Without them, the planet would go back to being a wasteland in less than a year. The local Corvin officials watched the humans work with growing panic. "You cannot take those machines," said Administrator Stoneheart, his rock-like body shaking with anger. "Millions of people depend on the food grown here." Ryan was a big man with calloused hands and dirt under his fingernails. He had spent 10 years of his life making this planet green and beautiful. Now he was watching his work get packed into crates. "Should have thought of that before you voted us out," Ryan said. He did not look at the alien. He kept his eyes on his workers as they disconnected the last weather control unit. "But the crops will die," Stoneheart said. "The planet will become desert again." "Not our problem anymore," Ryan said. "You made it clear that humans are not welcome here, so we are leaving, all of us, with all our stuff." The same scene played out on thousands of worlds. Humans had built hospitals that could bring people back from the dead. They took the hospitals apart and loaded them onto ships. Humans had created transportation networks that could move people across entire star systems in hours. They shut down the networks and took all the equipment. On the industrial moon of Haven's End, Greg Johnson watched his teams dismantle the biggest terraforming operation in the galaxy. They had been working for 15 years to turn dead rocks into living worlds. The project was almost finished. In another 2 years, they would have created homes for billions of alien families. Now the machines were being packed away. The half-finished planets would stay dead forever. "This is crazy," said Trade Minister Zelnoth. He was a Zelkari with purple skin and too many arms. His tentacle hair writhed with frustration. "You are destroying the work of decades." Greg was older than most of the other humans, maybe 60, with gray hair and tired eyes. He had seen a lot of worlds born and die. "We are not destroying anything," he said. "We are taking our property and going home. But we need this project," Zelnoth said. "Our people have nowhere else to go. Our home world is overcrowded." "Then you should have thought of that before you voted to kick us out," Greg said. "You cannot have it both ways. You cannot tell us to leave and also tell us to keep working for you for free." The alien officials tried everything. They offered to buy the human technology. They offered to pay humans to stay and run the machines. They even offered to change the vote in the council. The humans said no to everything. They were polite about it, but they were firm. The council had made its choice. Now humans were making theirs. Dr. Helen Price packed up her medical research on the core world of Centauri Prime. She had been working on cures for genetic diseases that affected dozens of alien species. Her research was almost complete. In a few more months, she could have saved millions of lives. Now her research was going back to Earth. The aliens would have to figure out how to cure their own diseases. "Dr. Price, please," said Dr. Healing Touch, her Luminian research partner. The flower-like alien's petals were wilted with sadness. "The children in the hospital need your medicine. Without it, they will die." Helen had worked with Healing Touch for 8 years. They had been friends. They had saved lives together, but friendship only went so far. "I am sorry," Helen said, "but I cannot help people who do not want me around." "It was not the children who voted," Healing Touch said. "It was the politicians." Helen stopped packing for a moment. She looked at her alien friend with sad eyes. "I know," she said, "but the politicians speak for all of you. That is how democracy works. You elected them. You trusted them to make choices for you. They chose to get rid of humans. So humans are leaving. The evacuation went faster than anyone expected. Humans were good at organizing. They were good at working together. Most of all, they were good at keeping their word. When they said they would be gone in 72 hours, they meant it. The alien governments kept trying to negotiate. They sent messages to Earth asking for special deals. They wanted to keep some humans around to run the important stuff. They wanted to buy the technology that humans had built. They wanted everything to go back to the way it was before the vote. Earth's answer was always the same. Silence. President Nathan Clark sat in his office in Washington and read the requests that poured in from across the galaxy. Trade deals, technology transfers, mutual defense pacts, emergency medical aid, all of it ignored. "Sir, the Nexari are offering us 3 star systems if we will just leave our computer networks running," said his aide. Patricia Wells. Nathan was a tall man with silver hair and steady hands. He had been president for 6 years and he had never seen anything like this. The aliens were panicking. "File it with the others," he said. "We are not interested in any deals." "But sir, some of these offers are very generous," Patricia said. Nathan looked out his window at the blue sky of Earth. In the distance, he could see the massive spaceports where human ships were arriving every hour, bringing home refugees from across the galaxy. "Patricia, they voted us out because they thought we were too dangerous to have around," he said. "Now they want us to keep protecting them and saving them and fixing their problems. You cannot have it both ways." The truth was starting to sink in across the galaxy. Humans had not just been members of the Council, they had been the backbone of galactic civilization. Their technology kept worlds alive. Their medicine kept species from going extinct. Their police kept pirates away from trade routes. Their soldiers kept aggressive empires from conquering their neighbors. Now all of that was gone. The humans had packed up their toys and gone home. They left behind empty buildings and broken dreams. They left behind worlds that would die without human technology. They left behind species that would go extinct without human medicine. Most of all, they left behind silence. No threats, no promises of revenge. No angry speeches about how sorry the aliens would be. Just silence. The last human ship left Council space exactly 72 hours after the vote, just like Jake Morrison had promised. The aliens watched them go and wondered what would happen next. They did not have to wait long to find out. Space was about to become a very dangerous place again, and this time, there would be no humans around to save them from it. 2 years after the humans left, Commander Yarvek of the Nexari Defense Corps stood on his ship's bridge and watched another colony burn. The Drakmiri horde had come out of nowhere, just like humans always said they would. But there were no humans around anymore to stop them. "Sir, we have lost contact with Epsilon Colony," reported his communications officer. The young Nexari's blue skin was pale with fear. "That makes 7 colonies destroyed in the past week." Yarvek's forearms moved across the control panels as he tried to coordinate the defense. It was like trying to catch smoke with a net. The Drakmiri ships were fast and brutal. They hit hard and disappeared before the Council forces could respond. "Where are the reinforcements from the 4th Fleet?" Yarvek asked. "Still 3 days away, sir," came the reply. "The logistics network is having problems." Yarvek knew what that meant. The humans had built the logistics network. They had created the communication systems that let fleets coordinate across vast distances. They had designed the supply lines that kept Council forces fed and armed. Now that network was falling apart because no one else knew how to run it properly. The Drakmiri were exactly what humans had always warned about. They were monsters from the dark edges of space who ate other species and used their bones to decorate their ships. For 50 years, human patrol fleets had kept them trapped in their home systems. The moment humans left, the Drakmiri had started expanding again. "Sir, incoming message from Admiral Stonecaller," the communications officer said. "The Corvin are asking for immediate reinforcement at the Sigma-7 system." "Tell them we cannot spare any ships," Yarvek said. "We are barely holding our own position." This was the problem everywhere. Without human coordination, every species was fighting alone. The Corvin could not help the Nexari. The Nexari could not help the Luminians. Everyone was too busy protecting their own worlds to help their neighbors. The first Drakmiri ship appeared on Yarvek's screens like a nightmare made real. It was huge and ugly, covered in spikes and weapons. Smaller ships swarmed around it like angry insects. "All weapons fire at will," Yarvek ordered. The battle was short and brutal. The Drakmiri ships were tough and well-armed, but Yarvek's crew was experienced. They managed to drive off the attack, but not before losing 2 of their own ships. "Damage report," Yarvek called out. "Hull breaches on decks 5 through 7, his engineer reported. "Life support is failing in Section C. We need to dock for repairs." "Where is the nearest repair facility?" There was a long pause. "The closest one that can handle our ship type was the human facility at Kepler Station," the engineer said quietly. "But that was dismantled 2 years ago." Yarvek closed his eyes. The humans had built the best repair facilities in the galaxy. Their engineers could fix any ship from any species. When they left, they had taken all their knowledge and tools with them. Now damaged Council ships had to limp home on broken engines. The war dragged on for months. What should have been a quick victory for the Council forces turned into a grinding nightmare. The Drakmiri were not particularly smart or well-equipped. They were just persistent and brutal. They kept coming no matter how many ships the Council destroyed. On the medical station orbiting Altair 4, Dr. Healing Touch worked frantically to save refugees from the war. The flower-like Luminian had been Helen Price's research partner before the humans left. Now she was trying to do the work of 10 doctors without any of the human medical technology that had made miracles routine. "Doctor, the patients in Ward 7 are getting worse," her assistant reported. "The infection is spreading despite our treatments." Healing Touch looked at the reports with growing despair. The Drakmiri used biological weapons that attacked the nervous systems of other species. Human doctors had developed treatments for these weapons decades ago, but the humans had taken all their medical research when they left. "Try increasing the antibiotic doses," she said, knowing it would not work. "We already tried that, and the painkillers are not helping either." Healing Touch walked through the wards filled with dying refugees. Children cried for parents who would never come home. Adults writhed in pain that could have been easily treated if Helen Price was still around. Entire families were being destroyed by diseases that humans could have cured in hours. "Can we contact Earth?" Healing Touch asked her assistant. "Maybe the human doctors would help if we explained the situation." "We have sent 17 requests for medical aid," the assistant said. "Earth has not responded to any of them." Meanwhile, on the war-torn world of Haven's Rest, the local planetary governor watched his defense fleet get torn apart by Drakmiri raiders. Governor Brightsky was a Luminian who had always believed in peace and negotiation. He had voted to expel the humans because he thought they were too violent. Now, violence had come to his world anyway, and there was no one to protect his people. "Sir, the raiders are heading for the civilian shelters," his military advisor reported. "Our remaining ships cannot stop them." "Contact the nearest council fleet," Brightsky ordered. "We need immediate assistance." "I already tried, sir. The nearest council ships are 4 days away. The raiders will be here in 4 hours. Brightsky thought about the human base that used to orbit his world. Captain Tony Morrison and his squadron had kept the peace for 15 years. They had stopped pirate raids and smuggling operations. They had rescued civilians from natural disasters. They had been good neighbors and trusted friends. Right up until Brightsky had voted to kick them out of council space. "Try to contact Earth directly," he said desperately. "Offer them anything they want. Money, territory, trade deals, anything." The message was sent, but no reply came back. Earth remained silent while Haven's Rest burned. The pattern repeated across the galaxy. Worlds that had been safe for 50 years suddenly found themselves under attack. Trade routes that had been secure for decades became hunting grounds for pirates. Species that had lived in peace for generations started fighting each other over resources and territory. The Great Nexari-Corvan trade war started over a simple misunderstanding about mining rights in the asteroid fields of Kepler. Without human mediators to negotiate a solution, the dispute escalated into a shooting war that lasted 3 years and killed millions. The Zelkari-Altarian border conflict began when refugees from the Drakmiri War crossed into Altarian space looking for safety. The Altarians panicked and started shooting at refugee ships, thinking they were invaded by Drakmiri forces. The Zelkari responded by attacking Altarian border stations. Without human peacekeepers to separate the combatants, both wars spiraled out of control. High Counselor Zethkar sat in his private chamber on the council homeworld and read reports from across the galaxy. His crystal body was dim with exhaustion and worry. Everything was falling apart, and he was starting to understand. "Why, sir, we have received another request for intervention in the Corvan-Nexari conflict," his aide reported. "Both sides are asking us to send peacekeepers." "What peacekeepers?" Zethkar asked bitterly. "The humans were our peacekeepers. We kicked them out, remember? Perhaps we could form a new peacekeeping force from other council species." Zethkar laughed, but there was no humor in it. "The Luminians will not fight because it goes against their beliefs. The Ethereals cannot fight because they do not have physical bodies. The Corvan and Nexari are fighting each other. The Zelkari are too busy dealing with refugees. Who exactly do you think will volunteer to die for strangers?" That was the real problem. Other species might help their friends or their allies, but only humans had been willing to bleed for anyone who needed help. Only humans had seen the galaxy as one big family that needed to be protected. Now that family was tearing itself apart, and there was no one left who cared enough to stop it. "Sir, there is one more thing," the aide said quietly. We are receiving reports that some council members are considering withdrawing from the alliance entirely. Zethkar was not surprised. When the galaxy became dangerous again, every species started thinking about their own survival first. The grand dream of galactic unity was dying along with all the people who had believed in it. How many species are talking about leaving? At least 40, sir, maybe more. Zethkar looked out the window at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, humans were living their own lives on their own worlds, probably not even thinking about the chaos they had left behind. They had tried to warn the council that this would happen. They had explained that the galaxy was only peaceful because someone was willing to fight to keep it that way. The council had not listened. Now they were learning the hard way that peace was not the natural state of the universe. Peace was something that had to be earned and defended every single day. And the people who had been doing that job were gone. 5 years after the humans left, the galaxy was a nightmare. Council mediator Feltar stood in the ruins of what had once been the greatest trading station in known space. Sigma Centauri Station had been home to 12 million beings from 40 different species. Now it was just twisted metal and frozen corpses floating in the darkness. How many survivors did we find? Feltar asked his rescue team leader. The Trill Confederation officer's skin was gray with fatigue and grief. Final count is 8,000, the rescue leader said. Everyone else is gone. Feltar closed his eyes and tried not to think about the numbers. 2.7 million dead in a single battle. The station had been destroyed when 3 different species started fighting over who controlled the trade routes. What should have been a simple negotiation had turned into a massacre. Any word from the peace talks? Feltar asked. The talks collapsed yesterday, the rescue leader said. The Nexari walked out when the Corvin demanded war reparations. The Zelkari are threatening to blockade all Altarian shipping. The Luminians are talking about isolating themselves completely. This was happening everywhere. The great galactic civilization that had taken centuries to build was crumbling in just a few years. Without humans to mediate disputes and enforce peace, old enemies were settling old scores. New conflicts were starting over resources that were becoming scarce as trade networks collapsed. Admiral Kate Thompson sat in her office on Luna Base, the human military headquarters for the Sol system. Through her window, she could see the beautiful blue globe of Earth, peaceful and safe behind the strongest defense grid in the galaxy. Her aide, Commander Steve Parker, brought her the daily intelligence reports from Council Space. The news got worse every day. Ma'am, the Drakmiri horde has taken the Epsilon system, Steve reported. That gives them control of the main shipping lane to the galactic core. How many casualties? Kate asked, though she already knew the answer would be horrible. 4 billion dead or missing, Steve said quietly. The survivors are fleeing toward Luminian space, but the Luminians do not have the resources to help them. Kate had been admiral of the 3rd Fleet before the expulsion. She had fought the Drakmiri for 20 years and knew exactly how dangerous they were. With humans gone, there was no one left who understood how to fight them effectively. Any requests for assistance, she asked. Steve handed her a datapad with the latest messages from Council Space. 47 formal requests in the past day alone. The Nexari are offering us the mineral rights to 3 star systems. The Corvin are promising exclusive trade deals. The Luminians are begging us to at least send medical supplies. Kate scrolled through the messages with growing disgust. These were the same species that had voted to kick humans out of Council Space, the same ones who had said humans were too dangerous and aggressive. Now they wanted human help to save them from the consequences of their own choices. What are our orders from Earth Command? She asked. Same as always, ma'am. Maintain defensive positions around human space. Do not respond to any requests from Council species. Absolute radio silence. Kate understood the orders, but they were hard to follow. She was a soldier. Her job was to protect people who could not protect themselves. Watching billions die while she could help was against every instinct she had. But orders were orders, and the civilians on Earth had made their decision clear. If the Council did not want humans around, then humans would not get involved in Council problems. President Nathan Clark stood before the Joint Chiefs of Staff in the underground war room beneath the Pentagon. On the screens around him, red zones marked the areas of council space where wars were raging. There were a lot of red zones. "Give me the latest casualty estimates," Nathan said. General Robert Hayes, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, consulted his reports. "Best guess is over 50 billion dead in the past 5 years, he said. "That number could be low. Communications are breaking down in many sectors, so we are not getting accurate information." Nathan had been expecting high numbers, but 50 billion still hit him like a punch to the stomach. That was more than the total population of human space. An entire civilization was committing suicide, and they wanted humans to save them from themselves. "What about our own people?" Nathan asked. "All human colonies are secure," General Hayes reported. "We have had 0 casualties from external threats. The defense perimeter is holding perfectly." That was the irony of the situation. While Council space burned, human space was more peaceful than it had ever been. Without the constant demands for help from alien governments, humans had been able to focus on improving their own worlds. Technology was advancing faster than ever. Population was growing. New colonies were being established at a record pace. Humanity was thriving while the rest of the galaxy collapsed. "Sir, there is one more thing," General Hayes said. "We are getting reports that some council species are starting to attack each other over resources. The peaceful Luminians actually declared war on the Ethereal Collective last week." Nathan shook his head in amazement. The Luminians had been the strongest supporters of galactic peace. They had voted to expel humans because they said human methods were too violent. Now they were fighting wars of their own. "How did that happen?" Nathan asked. "The Ethereals control most of the remaining energy production facilities in their sector," General Hayes explained. "The Luminians needed power for their refugee camps. The Ethereals said no, so the Luminians decided to take it by force. And the Ethereals, they are threatening to shut down all power production in council space unless the attacks stop. That would cause the collapse of life support systems on thousands of worlds." Nathan sat down heavily in his chair. This was exactly what humans had warned about for decades. Take away the threat of force, and eventually, someone would use force to get what they wanted. The Luminians thought they could build a galaxy based on pure peace and negotiation. Now they were learning that sometimes the other guy just says no, and then what do you do? Meanwhile, on the former council capital world of Harmony, High Counselor Zethkar faced the biggest crisis in galactic history. More than half the council members had withdrawn from the alliance. The remaining species were too busy fighting their own wars to participate in galactic governance. "Sir, we just lost the Altarian Republic," his aide reported. "They are formally withdrawing from the council effective immediately." Zethkar's crystal body was so dim it was almost transparent. He had aged 10 years in the past 5. The stress of watching galactic civilization collapse was killing him slowly. "How many members do we have left?" he asked. 23 confirmed, the aide said. "But 7 of those have not attended a council session in over a year. I think we can assume they are gone too." 23 members out of the original 862. The Galactic Council was almost dead. In a few more years, it would probably dissolve entirely, leaving every species to fend for itself in an increasingly dangerous universe. "Sir, there is one more message," the aide said quietly. "It came through diplomatic channels from Earth." Zethkar looked up with hope for the first time in months. "What does it say?" The aide handed him a data pad with the message. It was very short. "The government of Earth acknowledges receipt of your request for assistance. We are willing to discuss the matter under the following conditions. First, full restoration of human membership in the Galactic Council with voting rights. Second, formal apology from all species that voted for expulsion. Third, compensation for damages caused by the forced evacuation. Fourth, guarantee that humans will have final authority on all military and security matters. Please respond within 30 days if these terms are acceptable." Zethkar read the message 3 times. It was not what he had expected. He had hoped for immediate help with no conditions. Instead, the humans were treating this like a business negotiation. "What do you think, sir?" the aide asked. Zeth quote, Carr thought about the burning worlds and the millions of refugees and the wars that were spreading like cancer across the galaxy. He thought about the proud species that were being driven to extinction because they could not defend themselves. He thought about the dream of galactic unity that was dying a little more each day. "I think," he said slowly, "that we made a terrible mistake 5 years ago. Should we accept their terms?" Zethkar looked out at the stars and wondered if there would be any civilization left to save by the time the politicians finished arguing about the terms. "Contact the remaining council members," he said. "We need to hold an emergency session, and this time we are going to have to swallow our pride and admit that we were wrong. What if some species refuse to accept the human conditions?" Zethkar's crystal form flashed with bitter humor. "Then they can try to survive on their own. But I do not think many of them will choose that option, not anymore." The message went out to the surviving council members that same day. For the first time in 5 years, they would be discussing the possibility of asking humans to come back. The question was whether there would be anyone left to save by the time humans decided to help. 8 years after the silent departure, the galaxy was dying. High Counselor Zethkar stood before what remained of the Galactic Council and looked out at empty seats that had once held representatives from hundreds of worlds. Now only 37 species remained in the Alliance, and most of them were barely surviving. "We must face the truth," Zethkar said to the assembled delegates. His crystal body was so dim it was almost colorless. "We cannot continue like this. Every day more worlds fall to chaos. Every week another species faces extinction. Every month we lose more of what took us centuries to build." The remaining council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Some of them had been among the loudest voices calling for human expulsion 8 years ago. Now they were learning what the galaxy looked like without human protection. Former council president Morden of the Altarian Republic raised one of his 4 arms to speak. The Altarians had withdrawn from the council 2 years ago, but they had sent a representative to this emergency session. That was how desperate things had become. "The human terms are harsh," Morden said. "Full restoration of membership, formal apologies, war reparations, and they want final authority over all military decisions." "The terms are fair," interrupted Governor Brightsky of the Luminian Peace Collective. The flower-like being looked wilted and tired. His once beautiful petals were brown at the edges. "We kicked them out. We ignored their warnings. We refused their help when the chaos started. Now we want them to save us from ourselves." "But giving them military authority over the entire galaxy," protested Trade Minister Zelnoth of the Zelkari. "That makes them the rulers of council space." Zethkar's crystal form flashed with something that might have been anger. "They were already the rulers of council space," he said. "We were just too blind to see it. Who do you think kept the Drakmiri from eating us? Who stopped the pirate fleets? Who mediated our disputes and enforced the peace? We called it cooperation, but it was really human leadership. The truth was bitter, but it was still the truth. Humans had been the backbone of galactic civilization for 50 years. They had been the police force, the fire department, the emergency medical service, and the peacekeeping army all rolled into one. When they left, everything else collapsed because everything else had been dependent on them. "What choice do we have?" asked Dr. Healing Touch, representing what was left of the medical community. The Luminian doctor looked old and broken. "The plague from the Drakmiri bioweapons is spreading to new systems every day. Without human medical technology, entire species will go extinct. The Corvan-Nexari War has expanded to include 6 more species," added Admiral Stonecaller of the Corvan Defense Force. "Without human mediation, it will continue until everyone involved is dead." "The trade networks are completely collapsed," reported Minister Brightfuture of the remaining commercial guilds. "Most worlds cannot get food or medical supplies. Some colonies are already dying of starvation." One by one, the delegates painted a picture of a galaxy in terminal decline. Wars were spreading like wildfire. Plagues were killing billions. Entire civilizations were collapsing back into barbarism. The dream of galactic unity was not just dead, it was rotting. Meanwhile, on Earth, President Nathan Clark sat in the Oval Office and read intelligence reports from Council Space. The IE. Numbers were almost too big to believe. 60 billion dead in the past 8 years. Hundreds of worlds depopulated. Dozens of species facing extinction. Sir, we just received the formal response from the Galactic Council, said Secretary of State Patricia Wells. They accept our terms. Nathan was not surprised. He had expected this day would come eventually. The only question had been how long it would take and how many people would die first. All of our terms? He asked. Yes, sir. Full restoration of human membership with expanded voting rights. Formal apologies from all surviving species. War reparations to be paid over 50 years. And complete human authority over all military and security matters in Council Space. Nathan nodded. The terms were harsh, but they had to be. Humans could not afford to go back to the old system where they did all the work and took all the risks while other species made the decisions. If humans were going to save the galaxy again, they would do it on human terms. What about our conditions for the rescue operation? Nathan asked. They have accepted those as well, Patricia said. Human commanders for all Council military forces, human administrators for the refugee resettlement programs, human oversight of all war crimes tribunals. They are essentially asking us to take over the galaxy and fix everything. And our people, are they ready for this? Patricia smiled for the first time in years. Sir, our fleets have been ready since the day we left Council Space. Admiral Thompson has been planning the relief operation for 3 years. We can have the first ships underway within hours of your order. Nathan thought about the human colonies that had grown and prospered during the 8 years of isolation. Humanity was stronger now than it had ever been. They had new technologies that made their old equipment look primitive. They had faster ships, better weapons, more advanced medical techniques, and most importantly, they had unity. The expulsion from the Council had done something that centuries of Earth politics could not accomplish. It had brought all of humanity together under a single purpose. Every human colony, every human faction, every human political party now agreed on one thing. Humanity would never again be dependent on aliens for their survival. Send the message to Admiral Thompson, Nathan said. Operation Homecoming is approved. Tell her to save as many as she can, but human safety comes first. We are not going back to the old system where humans die to protect people who do not appreciate the sacrifice. 3 days later, the first human ships appeared in Council Space, for the first time in 8 years. But these were not the same ships that had left. The new human vessels were sleek and powerful, with technologies that seemed almost magical to the desperate aliens who watched them arrive. Admiral Kate Thompson stood on the bridge of her flagship, the UES Defiant, and looked out at the ruins of what had once been the Nexari home system. 3 worlds had been completely destroyed in the war. The survivors were living in refugee camps on the remaining planets, slowly dying of disease and starvation. Ma'am, we are receiving hundreds of distress calls, reported her communications officer. Every ship, every station, every refugee camp is asking for help. Kate had been preparing for this day for 8 years. She knew exactly what needed to be done and in what order. Medical teams to the refugee camps first, engineering crews to restore basic life support systems, security forces to establish order, and send word to Admiral Rodriguez that we need the hospital ships here as fast as possible. Yes, ma'am. What about the peace negotiations between the Nexari and Corvin? Tell them the war is over, Kate said simply. Human peacekeepers will be taking over security for both systems. Anyone who wants to keep fighting can do it somewhere else. It was not a request. It was not a suggestion. It was an order backed by the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. The Nexari and Corvin had been killing each other for 6 years. Now humans were telling them to stop, and if they did not like it, they could leave. The same scene was playing out across Council Space. Human fleets were arriving at crisis zones and taking control. They were not asking permission. They were not negotiating terms. They were simply fixing problems in the most efficient way possible. On the plague world of Altair 7, Dr. Helen Price led a team of human medics in treating the victims of Drakmiri bioweapons. She had spent 8 years developing new treatments in human labs. Now she was putting them to use. "Doctor, the local medical staff wants to know how we cured the neural decay in just 3 hours," her assistant said. "Their treatments have been failing for years." Helen looked at the Luminian doctor who had asked the question. It was Dr. Healing Touch, her old research partner from before the expulsion. The alien looked older and more tired than Helen remembered. "We improved our techniques while you were busy voting us out of the galaxy," Helen said bluntly. "This disease would have been easy to cure 8 years ago if you had let us work together. Instead, you preferred to let people die rather than have humans around." "Helen, please," Healing Touch said. "We made a mistake. We know that now." "Yes, you did make a mistake," Helen said. "You made a lot of mistakes, and millions of people died because of those mistakes. But we are here now, and we are going to fix what can be fixed." "Does that mean you forgive us?" Helen was quiet for a long moment. She looked around at the hospital ward full of patients who would have been dead if humans had not come back. She thought about all the people who had died during the 8 years when human help was not available. "Forgiveness is not the right word," she said finally. "We are here because it is our job. We protect people, all people, even people who do not want us around. That is what makes us human." The rescue operation continued for months. Human ships brought food to starving worlds. Human doctors cured diseases that had been killing millions. Human engineers restored power to dead systems. Human peacekeepers stopped wars that had been raging for years. But this time, humans were in charge. There were no debates in the council about human methods being too violent.